International Women's Day this year is being held on the 8th of March, and the theme is Break the Bias. So imagine a world that's gender-free, where there's no stereotypes, there's equality and inclusion of all difference. The person that I'm going to be talking about today is someone that I've looked up to and I actually follow, is the Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern. She's a person I suppose is breaking new ground in how she's leading her country. The kind of leadership that she demonstrates is around empathy, kindness, and as a result of that she shows compassion in all that she does. She's faced some terrible moments in her Prime Ministership where there's been some significant crisis, and she's been there for the people, she's walked alongside the people, and she's got a great vision around building a community, building a society in New Zealand around inclusion and diversity. So this year I hope that you can have an opportunity to reflect on those women that are important in your life or beyond your own family and community, and look to them as role models for you as we move forward.
Happy International Women's Day. Today's a really special day where we get to celebrate all the wonderful women who have inspired us and helped us to be the people that we are today and the people that we want to become in the future. And I've been inspired by lots of different women, in particular my mum, who's really taught me to treat others in the way that I want to be treated and how to take care of people. And another woman who's really inspired me is Mother Mary MacKillop. And Mary MacKillop is a really special lady. She's actually the first saint in Australia. She was born in Australia and she grew up as a really poor child. She decided she wanted to become a teacher so that she could help others. And she also became a sister of St. Joseph and opened up a group of nuns who formed the Sisters of St. Joseph. Her main reason for doing this was because she wanted to educate all children and ensure they had a good education. And she had a really tough time doing it. There was lots of struggles and lots of barriers in her way, but she never gave up. One of the greatest things about Mary MacKillop is the care that she showed throughout her life to children and to others. And so she's one of the people who really inspire me today.
An inspirational woman in today's society is Turia Pitt. Turia was competing in a 100-kilometre ultramarathon when she became stuck in a fire. She suffered burns to 65% of her body. Turia survived against overwhelming odds, undergoing over 200 surgeries, and is living proof that with the right mindset you can achieve anything. Turia is a brave, courageous and resilient woman who shows pure grit. Turia is a great role model to all women. She has a passion for life and never gives up.
Well, I have two things here that might give you a bit of an idea of who my person is that has inspired me. And for those of you who don't know, this is the scarf of Gryffindor and this is Dumbledore's wand. And my person is J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter books. She was a single woman, determined that she was going to spread her story all over the world. She had to have perseverance because she was rejected 12 times by publishers. And yet she kept going. She kept knowing that her story was going to make a difference, and what a difference it made. It helped millions of children and adults to read. It also gave lots of people a fantasy world that they can jump in and out to whenever they want to. They've gained how to work together. They know what it's like to be in a team, and they know that good can come over evil. So with her money that she gained from the books, she thought that she would also help others in need. And so she supported her own charity, which is helping people in Eastern European countries to actually learn how to read. And she supports a lot of charities in Scotland as well to do the same. And she's used her money in lots of other areas to help people to gain a good education. So J.K. Rowling, a very special woman.
Okay, my two inspirational women are my sister and my mum. Both are very strong women, but also very forgiving and amazing mothers. But I think the most important message from them is about empowering yourself as a woman and being strong and brave and kind and compassionate.
Someone who inspires me is Grace Tame. She was the Australian of the Year in 2021. Why she inspires me is because she is extremely courageous and extremely passionate, particularly around the education of young people, which really resonates with me.
I've chosen my grandma. Her name was Jean Brandt, and there's a photo of her there with my daughter. The reason I've chosen my grandma is because of her independence. So my grandpa was injured in the war, so home life was quite tough. She did all the driving, she did all the gardening. She also worked full-time at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. Even though it was busy, she really had time to build a hobby just for herself. So that hobby was fishing. So she was a big part of setting up the Henley and Grange Fishing Club. During this time, she became the South Australian Women's Champion time and time again. She was a big advocate for changing the trophy. So every time she won the championship, she would get a trophy and it would have a male fishing on the top. So she spent quite a few years trying to get the trophy person to actually change it to be more accepting of female anglers. So it didn't quite happen in her lifetime. We still have all her trophies at her holiday house, and we kind of look at them and just think how far the world has come, especially with sports that are predominantly thought of as male sports. So I think she would be looking down very happy with AFL football for women, and especially the trophies now that are accepting of both genders. So yeah, this is a photo, and yeah, she's a great inspiration.
My inspirational woman is Marie Curie Skłodowska. She was a Polish-French scientist. She said many really great things in her life, but the one thing that struck with me was, nothing in life is meant to be feared. It is meant to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so we can fear less. I try to live by those words, to know more and learn more so that I can be very informed and I'm able to share that knowledge with my students. So Marie has had a lot of achievements in her life. She was the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. She's the only person to win Nobel Prizes in 2 different disciplines, in physics and chemistry. She actually has put her entire life's work for science and teaching science, and I'm trying to do that as well. So she is my women inspiration. Thank you.
There have been a couple of influential women in my life. One of them is Bishop Barbara Harris, who was the first female bishop in the Anglican Church, and she was ordained in America, and she always really stood up for women and showed women what they could do if they wanted to be something. But the most influential person has been my mum. She's 93, and she's lived through a war, through rationing, through so much change. And even though she's 93, she still has a Facebook account, she FaceTimes, uses her mobile, uses her laptop, and she's just such a really great example of somebody who is a lifelong learner and who's adaptable and flexible and always forward-looking.
My important person in my life has been my mother. She's been very important to me. She came to Australia by ship in 1961 to have a better life. It wasn't easy. She had to work hard. She showed me that you never give up on things. You keep on persisting, you give your best, and you work hard to achieve what you want to do.
This is Malala Yousafzai, and although she's only 24, she has achieved great things. As a young girl, she attended school in Pakistan and loved learning, but when she was just 11 years old, the Taliban took over and said that girls could not receive an education. She was passionate about girls having as much right to learn as boys, and she proudly spoke out about this, which unfortunately made her a target of the Taliban. One day, a man boarded her school bus, asked, "Who is Malala?" and shot her in the head. Malala was very lucky to survive, and from that point on, she was determined to continue her fight for girls' education, establishing the Malala Fund, a charity dedicated to giving every girl an education. For this, she became the youngest person to receive the Nobel Prize at the age of 17, and now that she's finished university, she continues to campaign for the 130 million girls still unable to go to school today.
So growing up in Ireland, there were lots of very famous women of a mythical nature and a political nature that I could draw inspiration from. One of which, from my Historypedia of Ireland, most famously for us is St. Bridget. Now, St. Bridget was the patron saint of Ireland, and she famously asked a king for some land so that she could actually build a monastery to help the poor. Now, when she was trying to get that land, the king wouldn't actually allow it. He said, you can have as much as your scarf can cover. So herself and some other people knitted this scarf, and it covered many acres of land. And that's what I love about the Irish mythology, combined with our belief that good things can happen with people. And so Bridget founded her monastery, and she looked after the people. Continuing with that, we have two presidents in Ireland, or we had three, Mary Robinson and Mary McAleese. So as a youth, I could see there are political leaders. And then finally, when I came over here to Australia, in more recent times, I was inspired particularly by the 2018 NAIDOC Week theme, where because of her we can. And in that, I recognized that Cathy Freeman, it was quite inspirational, because not only did she win her medals in Sydney, but she has set up a foundation looking at improving education opportunities for young Indigenous people today.
My inspiring woman is Lizzie Meitner. She was an Austrian physicist working in Germany. She was really inspirational because she was the first female professor of physics, which was really unusual for her time. And she worked with a guy called Otto Hahn on nuclear fission, which was really significant in physics. Unfortunately, she was doing this work during the time where Hitler came into power in Germany, and because she was a Jew, she had to flee Germany. So she actually continued this work with Otto Hahn via correspondence over quite a long period of time. Eventually, Otto Hahn was awarded a Nobel Prize for this work, and Lizzie Meitner wasn't. But instead of being concerned about her own perspective and her own recognition, she thought that the work was more important. So she continued to work in this research, but didn't actually gain any credit for it. It wasn't until a few decades later when the notes for the application to be a Nobel Prize winner were published that Meitner was given the recognition that she deserved for her significant contribution. And eventually she was awarded lots of honours, including having an atom number, I think it's 109, Meitnerium, named after her.